Welcome to Outboard Motorbike. That ratty looking mess there is the original Suzuki wiring loom, which I've managed to identify all the connectors for. A lot of it's redundant obviously because the engine's got its own wiring loom. But as I'm planning to use the Suzuki handlebar controls and the ignition switch and stuff, it's probably sensible to use the bits of that still work to run the blinkers and the headlights and such like things. Anyway, the way we've managed to identify what's going on there is by looking at this thing. That rather sexy looking pile of black and white is a Suzuki wiring diagram, and by going around and looking at each of the connectors and each of the items, I think we've got it all identified and we can carry on from there. Look at this test bench. There's a headlight. We've got the handlebar controls connected up and 12 volts up there. If we go down here and push the horn button, you can see the blinker goes off, which is sort of weird, but that's because the blinker's connected to the horn connection, but signs of life. Okay, so having function checked that lot, some things work and some things don't. The horn works, all the handlebar switches work, the tail light works, a few other bits and pieces, but the headlight doesn't work, and the blinkers come on but they don't flash. And the way Suzuki have done it's quite complicated, so what I'm going to do is strip out the loom, just keep the few wires that do work, and rewire the headlight and the blinkers and stuff from scratch, and we'll have something nice and tidy by the time we're done. Chop chop. Using this handy pair of side cutters, cut the whole back of the loom off. That's all sitting there with some other redundant stuff, which makes the loom quite a bit more compact. And I've also come across a massive win here. That's my not yet finished handlebar with the left hand controller on it. Because of this was a bit of a weird motorbike, so this huge bit of wire, bit of loom connecting the hand controller to the loom, main loom, which will run all the way down there without having to extend it, which is a massive win for mankind, or malkind, and connecting to the loom here. Same on both sides. Winner! So the latest development in our outboard motorbike wiring scheme is to keep those three bits you see in front of you, which is the left-hand handlebar control, the ignition switch, and the right-hand handlebar control, and their connectors. And all the stuff you see in the background there, which is the rest of the loom, is going to go in the bin, apart from the connectors for the handlebar controls and the attached wiring, and we'll do this instead. What you can see in front of you there is a wiring diagram for just the bits we need, which is left-hand handlebar switch, right-hand switch and ignition switch. Not using quite all the functionality that's on there. I don't know why Suzuki made it so complicated, but there you have it. Battery, ignition switch, a power relay, so that not everything has to go through the ignition switch, or we'd probably burn it out, which would be tedious. A changeover relay for high and low beam, flasher can, so those three can go together, and everything else just bolts to that. Electric water pump, fuel pump, fan, headlight, indicators, horn, that's the high beam light I suppose, and all the stuff down the back, lights at the back. Job done. A few more things to add to that, but that's pretty much it. I'll make it myself. 10 minutes later, here's our Suzuki wiring loom. They're the three controllers. And that's all that's left of the loom. However, we have the technology to rebuild him. So, wiring progress report. That little bit of aluminium plate is going to fit up underneath the fuel tank, out of the way where no one sees it. I guess that's a circuit board of sorts. It's our flasher relay, our power relay, and our high and low beam relay. And over here is a little thing that I guess other people do, but it's my way of building a bus bar although there's no bar, so I suppose it's a bus terminal, I don't know. But 4 little bolt-on male spade terminals, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a bolt, and some little machined washers that sit in there so that nothing touches the aluminium plate, and bolt 4 of them together, and they all talk to each other, and it saves endless splicing of wires. You can just keep plugging into the power as you go along. That's my way. Latest development in the world of wiring, the lithium ion batteries arrived after a long delivery time, because they're quite unusual in this capacity. That's 630 cold cranking amps, which is probably enough to start a diesel four-wheel drive, but anyway. But only weighs about a kilo. Wonderful things. So apart from being expensive, they're good because they don't go flat sitting on the shelf. They don't leak acid. You can mount them at any angle. They don't mind being flat if they do go flat, and they're nice and light. So we'll mount that on the bike in a nice tucked away location. Also newly arrived is the headlight. A nice little unit, bit Darth Vader, high and low beam, and an LED parking light, complete with a plastic fairing that covers over all the mess around the front of the forks, which is cool. And just very simple, 4 wires, $50, delivered, eBay, fantastic. As to where to put our little battery, it just tucks away into there quite nicely, and when it's in place, most of it's covered by part of it's covered by the tank. That's quite nice and discreet. So I'll make a bracket, little bracket to hold it up, hang it off this sandwich plate. You're good to go. Now, before I go and mount Darth Vader's headlight up here somewhere, I need to make some room for some instruments back in here so I can see what's going on. So I guess I better do the instruments first and mount that accordingly. So stand by. Now the main instruments we need up there are just an old analog Suzuki speedo, which will work off the cable, and a water temperature gauge, possibly some shift lights and some warning lights for things like high beam and indicators. So make a nice little, hopefully nice little pod that'll go up there somewhere. There's the beginning of our instrument binnacle. As you can imagine, the speedo fits in there like that. This little rolled up bit of aluminium fits around there like that, and so on. Hey presto, here's our little instrument binnacle, which mounts onto these 2 nice rubber bushes that Mr. Suzuki left there for us. So it'll all be nice and soft mounted. A couple of countersunk screws. That goes there. And there it is with the instruments fitted, namely a vintage Suzuki analog speedo, water temperature gauge, and 3 little warning lights for high beam, indicator, and something else, just in case we need it. Ignition in the middle. And with that mounted up, we can get on and see where to put the headlight. A little fabrication aside, in the middle of the electrical section, to make a bracket to mount the headlight onto the forks. That's a bit of 20mm wide soft aluminium strip with a 90-degree fold in it. Goes in the vise. And that's the leftover bit of jigging from the handlebars, which is the same diameter as the forks. And we just put it there, level with the back of that bracket, and wrap the aluminium around it, because it's soft. It follows quite well, like so. And just keep going. You end up with a homemade sort of P-clip. I suppose that's a P-clip that does the job for you really easily. 1 bolt there, 1 for the headlight, Way to go. Little update today, slightly out of sequence. But as you can see, the seats come back from the trimmers, covered in beautiful leather, and it looks lovely. And also, we just happen to have a big 18-inch wide rear tyre, which fits really quite well on the back of the bike. Just thought we'd see. But I don't think we'll go there. Outboard motorbikes reached an interesting stage here. There's Darth Vader's headlight in place on its little bracketry and instruments, and that's where the substation for all the wiring goes, under the tank. But at long last, the replacement piston for the outboard motor has arrived. So the next stage is to pull the whole thing apart and tidy up the back half of the frame and paint a few things, and when I put it back together, it'll be putting it back together with the view to starting it up. So ends today's exciting instalment.